Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Shattered Foundations. Damon Holloway stared at the ceiling fan in his home office, its rhythmic motion doing nothing to calm the storm raging inside him. At 43, he had built everything from nothing: a successful security consulting firm, a sprawling house in Atlanta's prestigious Buckhead neighborhood, and what he had once believed was a loving family. That illusion had shattered exactly 36 days ago. The camera system he'd installed throughout the property, a professional habit from his 15 years in private security after leaving the Marines, had caught his wife Adrian in the pool house with Benjamin Walsh, their 19-year-old son's lacrosse coach from Riverside Preparatory Academy. The same coach Damon had personally thanked at numerous team dinners hosted in this very home. The same man who had shaken his hand and accepted his generosity. What hurt worse was discovering his son Liam's involvement. The boy had known for months, had covered for his mother, had lied directly to Damon's face. The ultimate betrayal from the child he'd taught to throw a football, the boy whose college fund Damon had been filling since before he could walk. "Mr. Holloway?" His assistant's voice broke through the intercom. "Yes, Rita." His voice remained steady despite the turmoil beneath. "The investigator is here. Send him in." Calvin Russo entered with a manila envelope tucked under his arm. A former FBI agent with a reputation for discretion, Calvin had worked with Damon on several corporate security cases. "I have everything you asked for," Calvin said, placing the envelope on the desk. Damon opened it and methodically examined each document, photograph, and transcript. The evidence was irrefutable. Adrian and Walsh's affair had been going on for nearly 8 months. There were hotel receipts, text message transcripts, and photos taken at a cabin in the Smoky Mountains. But more damning were the recordings from Liam's phone. Conversations between mother and son discussing how to keep Damon in the dark. "You're certain the audio recordings will hold up?" Damon asked. "Georgia's a one-party consent state. Your son voluntarily recorded them, even if he didn't know what they'd be used for. They'll be admissible." Damon nodded, his expression betraying nothing of the calculated fury building within him. "And the other matter?" Calvin slid another document across the desk. "Walsh has a history. 2 prior schools, 2 similar situations with married women, both hushed up with settlements. I've traced the money." "Perfect." Damon tapped his fingers against the mahogany desk. "That will be all for now." After Calvin left, Damon pulled up the security app on his phone and watched the archived footage of Adrian and Liam talking in the kitchen 3 weeks ago. "Dad would destroy us both if he knew," Liam had said, looking nervously over his shoulder. Adrian had laughed, casual and dismissive. "Your father is completely oblivious. Besides, he's always worked too much to notice what's happening in his own house. That's why we're here in the first place." The words had cut through Damon like a serrated blade when he first heard them. Now they only hardened his resolve. He picked up his phone and dialed his attorney. "Nelson, it's time. File everything tomorrow morning." "Are you sure you want to go this route, Damon?" "It's scorched earth. No coming back." "Good," Damon replied coldly. "I don't want there to be anything left to come back to." Chapter 2. The Opening Gambit. The divorce papers struck like lightning on a clear day. Adrian received them at her yoga studio, served publicly in front of the class she taught 3 mornings a week. By noon, Damon had frozen all joint accounts, changed the locks on the house, and had a security team remove her belongings to a storage unit across town. Benjamin Walsh was terminated from Riverside Prep by the end of the school day, the headmaster ashen-faced after Damon's private meeting. The coach's past indiscretions had remained sealed until now, but Damon had ways of making information surface when needed. Liam returned from lacrosse practice to find his father sitting calmly in the kitchen. "Where's Mom?" he asked, his athletic bag dropping to the floor. "Your mother no longer lives here," Damon replied evenly, sliding a phone across the granite countertop. "And I believe this belongs to you." The color drained from Liam's face. "You went through my phone?" "No. You left your cloud account logged in on the home computer." "Sloppy." Damon's eyes were flint. "You have 30 minutes to pack what you absolutely need. Your mother is staying at the Waverly Hotel downtown. I suggest you join her." "Dad, I can explain." 29 minutes now. Damon watched impassively as his son scrambled upstairs. The boy's panic was palpable, but it stirred nothing in Damon. Where his heart should have been, there was only calculated purpose. When Preston, Adrian's father, called that evening, Damon answered with clinical detachment. You've lost your damn mind, Holloway, the older man growled. Adrienne's hysterical. You've humiliated her, thrown out your own son. Preston, Damon interrupted. Your daughter has been sleeping with my son's lacrosse coach for 8 months. Liam knew and helped cover it up. I have video evidence, audio recordings, and hotel receipts. Now, unless you want those details to become public knowledge at your country club, I suggest you reconsider your position. The silence on the other end was satisfying. What do you want? Preston finally asked, his bluster deflated. I want what's mine, and I want them to lose everything else. Damon hung up without waiting for a response. That night, alone in the house that had once held his family, Damon reviewed his plan. The initial shock was merely the foundation. Tomorrow would begin the systematic dismantling of Adrienne's world, Walsh's reputation, and Liam's future. Betrayal had consequences, and Damon Holloway believed in paying debts in full. They think they know me, he murmured to the empty room. They have no idea what I'm capable of. Chapter 3, Collateral Damage. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled with remarkable speed, a benefit of having the family court judge as a former client whose home security system Damon had personally installed after a break-in. Judge Catherine Landry maintained her professional demeanor, but her subtle nod to Damon spoke volumes. Adrienne arrived with her attorney, Charlotte Brennan, a shark in Louboutins known for gutting husbands in high-profile divorces. Liam sat behind them, refusing to meet Damon's gaze. Your Honor, Charlotte began. Mr. Holloway's actions constitute extreme emotional abuse. He's vindicatively cut off my client from her home and financial resources without warning. Damon's attorney, Nelson Grant, a silver-haired veteran of Atlanta's most vicious legal battles, stood unhurriedly. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Holloway has been engaged in an extramarital affair with a teacher at their son's school, creating an unhealthy environment for the minor child. Judge Landry's expression remained neutral. Do you have documentation of these allegations? We do, Your Honor. Extensive documentation. When the evidence was presented, photographs, text messages, and finally, the audio recordings from Liam's phone, the courtroom fell silent. Adrienne's face contorted in shock as her son's voice filled the room, discussing how they would continue deceiving Damon. He's been violent and dangerous, Adrienne testified desperately when her turn came. He installed cameras everywhere. He's been stalking and monitoring us. That's why I needed to get away. Liam nodded vigorously from his seat, backing up his mother's fabrications. Mr. Holloway, Judge Landry asked, do you have questions for the witness? Damon rose slowly, a predator confident in his timing. Just one, he replied, holding up his son's phone. Shall I play last Tuesday's conversation with your mother? Liam's eyes widened. The court reporter gasped as the audio began. Mom, I can't keep lying for you, Liam's voice said clearly. Dad's never done anything wrong. He works his ass off for us. Stop being dramatic, Adrienne's dismissive voice replied. Your father's too busy with his precious company to care what we do. Besides, Ben makes me happy. Once the divorce is final, I'll get half of everything. We'll be set. But what if Dad finds out we're lying about him being aggressive? That's serious, Mom. He won't. Trust me. Men like your father fold when their reputation is threatened. We just need to stick to our story. The recording ended. The courtroom remained silent. Your Honor, Damon said calmly, I have never raised a hand to my wife or son. I have never threatened them. The only thing I'm guilty of is trusting people who were systematically betraying me. Judge Landry's gaze hardened as she looked at Adrienne and Liam. This court does not look kindly on false accusations of domestic violence. They diminish the suffering of actual victims and abuse the court's resources. By the hearing's end, Damon had obtained full control of the family home, temporary custody of all assets pending final divorce proceedings, and a restraining order against Benjamin Walsh preventing him from contacting either Damon or Liam. Outside the courthouse, Adrienne grabbed Damon's arm. You've ruined everything, she hissed. This isn't over. Damon looked at her hand until she released him. You're right about one thing, he said quietly. This is just beginning. Chapter 4, Calculated Moves. 2 months after the custody hearing, Damon sat in his office reviewing the latest reports from his investigators. Adrienne had moved in with Benjamin Walsh in his modest apartment near the university where he'd managed to secure a position as an assistant fitness coordinator. a significant step down from his coaching career. Financial pressure was mounting. Preston had provided some support initially, but had withdrawn after Damon sent him the complete dossier on his daughter's activities. Liam had been forced to transfer to a public school for his senior year after Riverside Prep revoked his scholarship, another consequence of Walsh's termination. The boy's college prospects were dimming with each passing week. "Mr. Holloway?" Rita's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Valles is here." Damon straightened his tie. "Send her in." Mariana Valles entered with purposeful strides. As the lead journalist for Atlanta's most read investigative news site, she had built her reputation on exposing hypocrisies among the city's elite. "You have 15 minutes, Damon said, motioning to the chair across from him. Mariana smiled. "I appreciate you seeing me. Your ex-wife's allegations against you have gained traction in certain circles. I'm aware." Adrian had begun telling anyone who would listen that Damon had manipulated evidence and bullied her and Liam out of their home. "I'm working on a piece about false accusations in divorce proceedings," Mariana continued. "Their devastating impact on reputations, careers, families." Damon studied her. "And how does my situation fit into your story?" "That depends on what you're willing to share." She placed a digital recorder on the desk. "Off the record first. I've heard rumors about Adrian Holloway and Benjamin Walsh. Something about a pattern." Damon leaned back, considering his options. Mariana Valles was not known for her mercy, but her integrity was unquestioned. If she published something, it would be verified and damning. "On the record," he finally said, tapping the recorder. "I have documentation proving my ex-wife and her boyfriend conspired to falsely accuse me of domestic violence. I also have evidence that Mr. Walsh has a history of inappropriate relationships with married women at educational institutions. I've shared this information with relevant authorities." "And your son?" "Sources say he's living with his mother and Walsh now." A flicker of something, perhaps pain, crossed Damon's face before vanishing. "My son made his choice." After Mariana left, Damon called Calvin. "Is everything in place for tomorrow?" "Yes. The trustees will receive the financial records at 9 a.m. By noon, Preston Whitmore will have a lot of explaining to do." "Good. And the other matter?" "Surveillance confirms Walsh has been meeting with another married woman from the university. Photos are uploaded to your secure server." Damon smiled thinly. Perfect timing. The next day, Preston Whitmore faced an emergency board meeting at the Whitmore Foundation, the charitable organization that had burnished the family's reputation for 3 generations. Anonymous documents had revealed systematic misappropriation of funds, not by Preston, but by the foundation's treasurer, who happened to be Adrian's younger brother, Neil. By evening, both Preston and Neil were forced to resign from the foundation. The family name, once synonymous with Atlanta philanthropy, was now tainted by financial scandal. The fact that Damon's security firm had conducted the foundation's last security audit, which had mysteriously failed to uncover these irregularities, was a connection few made immediately. Meanwhile, Mariana Valles' article appeared online, Pattern of Predation, the disturbing history of Benjamin Walsh. Complete with testimonials from former students and parents, the piece stopped short of outright accusations but raised devastating questions about Walsh's character and professional ethics. When Adrian called, screaming about ruined lives and vendettas, Damon listened in silence. "Are you finished?" he asked when she finally paused for breath. "You think you've won," she spat. "But Liam will never forgive you for this." "Never." "I'm not looking for forgiveness," Damon replied. "Tell Neil he might want to consult an attorney. The foundation is filing criminal charges tomorrow." As he hung up, Damon opened his laptop to an email from Judge Landry. "Thought you should see this before it becomes public." Attached was a formal complaint Adrian had filed against the judge, alleging bias and improper conduct. Damon smiled. Another predictable move on the chessboard. Another opportunity to spring his carefully laid traps. Chapter 5. The Fulcrum. The divorce proceedings had reached a critical phase. Damon's forensic accountants had uncovered offshore accounts Adrian had established 3 years earlier, siphoning small amounts from their joint finances. Not enough to be immediately noticeable, but totaling over $200,000. Simultaneously, Benjamin Walsh was fighting his own battle. The university had opened an investigation following Mariana's article, and 2 female students had come forward with complaints about inappropriate behavior. Liam, caught in the crossfire, had reached out to Damon for the first time in months. The text was brief. "Can we talk?" Damon considered ignoring it. The boy had made his choice, standing with his mother even after her lies were exposed. But strategy demanded flexibility, and Liam might provide useful information. They met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. Liam arrived looking thinner, the confident swagger replaced by hunched shoulders and darting eyes. "You look terrible," Damon observed, pushing a cup across the table. "Yeah, well." Liam stared at the coffee. "Things aren't great." "I imagine not." Silence stretched between them until Liam finally spoke. "Mom's not doing well. Ben lost his job at the university. We had to move to a smaller apartment." "That sounds like a consequence of their actions." Liam's eyes flashed with momentary anger. "You've destroyed everyone around you. Grandpa's reputation, Uncle Neil facing charges, Mom's savings gone." "Your mother stole that money," Damon interrupted coldly. "From our family. From you. As for your grandfather and uncle, they made their choices long before I exposed them. What do you want? Why won't you just let it go?" Damon studied his son's face, Adrienne's delicate features with his own gray eyes. Once, he would have done anything for this boy. Now, he felt nothing but cold assessment. "I want what was taken from me," Damon said simply. "My reputation. My dignity. My family. We can still be a family." "No." The word fell like a guillotine. "That's not possible anymore." Liam's face crumpled. "She says you'll take everything. That will have nothing left. She's finally telling you the truth about something." Damon stood, leaving his coffee untouched. "You should ask her what she planned to do with the money she was hiding. Ask her if it was enough to start over with Walsh somewhere else. Without you." He left Liam sitting there, confusion and fear battling across his young face. As Damon walked to his car, his phone buzzed with a text from Calvin. Walsh made contact with Miller. "Meeting set for tomorrow." Damon smiled. Gregory Miller was Preston Whitmore's attorney, and another of Damon's former clients. The desperation move he'd been waiting for had finally materialized. That evening, Damon reviewed the latest surveillance. Adrienne had visited her father 3 times in the past week. Walsh had made calls to former colleagues at Riverside Prep. They were scrambling, looking for leverage, for escape routes. His phone rang. "Nelson Grant." "They've made an offer," his attorney said without preamble. "Adrienne will drop all allegations, agree to minimal spousal support, and give you complete control of the business interests if you'll settle for an even split of personal assets." "No, Damon, this is actually a reasonable." "They don't deserve reasonable," Damon interrupted. "Tell them I want it all, or we continue to trial." Nelson sighed. "This vendetta, it won't bring you peace." "I'm not looking for peace." Damon ended the call and turned back to his work. The next phase required perfect timing. Gregory Miller would inform Preston of Walsh's approach. Preston, desperate to salvage family honor, would offer Walsh money to disappear. Walsh, seeing his opportunity, would take the money and abandon Adrienne, proving Damon's assessment of his character correct. Adrienne, betrayed as she had betrayed, would finally understand what Damon had felt, and Liam would learn that loyalty was not an abstract concept, but the foundation of everything worthwhile. The pieces were in position. All Damon had to do was wait. Chapter 6. Fracture Points. Benjamin Walsh never showed for his meeting with Gregory Miller. Instead, he emptied his bank account, packed a single bag, and disappeared, leaving behind a brief note for Adrienne. "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." The betrayal broke something in Adrienne that all of Damon's calculated moves had not. When she arrived at the mediation session the following week, the polish and defiance had vanished. She looked hollow, diminished. Damon watched her from across the conference room table, feeling neither satisfaction nor pity, only the cold certainty that justice was unfolding exactly as it should. "My client is prepared to accept Mr. Holloway's terms," Charlotte Brennan announced, her usual aggressive tone subdued. "Full financial disclosure, relinquishment of all claims to business assets, and minimal spousal support." Nelson raised an eyebrow at Damon, who nodded once. "There is one additional condition," Damon said, sliding a document across the table. "A public statement acknowledging the false allegations against me." Charlotte began to object, but Adrienne placed a hand on her attorney's arm. "It's fine. I'll sign it." After the papers were signed and the attorneys had departed, Damon and Adrienne found themselves alone in the conference room. "Was it worth it?" she asked, her voice barely audible. destroying everything we built. I didn't destroy anything, Damon replied evenly. You and Liam did that. I merely ensured there were consequences. Ben's gone. My family's reputation is ruined. Are you satisfied now? Damon gathered his documents. Walsh leaving was never part of my plan. That was his choice, proof of exactly the kind of man you betrayed your family for. What about Liam? He's still your son. Something flashed in Damon's eyes, the first genuine emotion he'd shown in months. Is he? A son who lies to his father, who helps conceal his mother's infidelity, who stands by while false accusations are made. That's not the son I raised. He's just a kid who got caught between his parents. He's 18, old enough to know right from wrong. Damon moved toward the door, old enough to face consequences. That evening, Liam appeared at the house, using his old key. He found Damon in the kitchen. Mom told me what happened, Liam said, hovering uncertainly in the doorway. About Ben leaving. Did she tell you he took the money your grandfather offered him? Liam's face registered shock. Grandpa paid him to leave. $50,000. Damon continued preparing his dinner, not looking up. Your grandfather thought he could solve the problem by removing Walsh from the equation. Walsh proved him right about one thing. He was never interested in anything but what he could take. I didn't know. Liam stepped further into the kitchen. Can I come home? The knife in Damon's hand stilled momentarily before resuming its rhythmic chopping. This isn't your home anymore. Dad, please. I made a mistake. I know that now. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or failing a test, Damon said, his voice terrifyingly calm. What you did was a choice. A series of choices, made day after day for months. I'll do anything to make it right. Damon finally looked up, his eyes cold. There is nothing to make right. There is only moving forward with the understanding that actions have permanent consequences. So that's it. You're just cutting me off completely. I've arranged for your tuition at state to be covered. You'll have a modest allowance for living expenses. Damon returned to his preparation. Beyond that, you're on your own. Consider it a valuable life lesson. Liam stood frozen, the reality of his father's implacability finally sinking in. You don't mean that. You can't just stop loving your own son. I stopped when you helped destroy our family. Damon's words were delivered without heat, making them all the more final. Now leave. Your key won't work after tonight. After Liam left, Damon sat alone at the kitchen island, meal forgotten. The house echoed with emptiness, but he felt no urge to fill it with new relationships or meaningless distractions. This was the price of his retribution, a solitary existence defined by the absence of those who had betrayed him. He pulled out his phone and dialed Calvin. It's done, he said simply. Close all the surveillance operations. We're finished. Are you sure? Calvin asked. There's still the matter of Preston's. No, it's enough. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, Damon felt the weight of exhaustion. Send me the final bill. That night, he slept dreamlessly, wrapped in the cold comfort of victory. Chapter 7. Echoes and Consequences. 3 years passed. Damon expanded his security firm into 3 additional states, becoming the premier provider for high-net-worth individuals and corporations requiring discreet protection. His personal life remained exactly that, personal and solitary, with relationships that never progressed beyond casual companionship. The Whitmore family had never recovered from the scandal. Preston had retired from public life entirely. Neil had avoided criminal charges through a plea deal, but was effectively unemployable in financial circles. Adrian had found work as an administrative assistant at a small law firm, a humbling position for a woman who had once managed charity galas for Atlanta's elite. Damon kept tabs on them not out of lingering anger, but from the same methodical thoroughness that characterized everything he did. Information was power, and he never intended to be blindsided again. On a rain-slick Tuesday in October, Damon's assistant buzzed his office. Mr. Holloway, there's a Trevor Walsh here to see you. No appointment. Damon stilled. Trevor Walsh, Benjamin Walsh's son from his first marriage. A young man Damon had never met. Send him in. Trevor Walsh was 22, with his father's athletic build, but none of his easy charm. He stood awkwardly just inside the door, rainwater dripping from his jacket. Mr. Holloway, thank you for seeing me. Damon gestured to a chair. What can I do for you, Mr. Walsh? It's about my father. Trevor swallowed hard. He's dead. Car accident in Colorado last month. Damon's expression remained neutral. I'm sorry for your loss. No, you're not. Trevor's voice hardened. But that's not why I'm here. Before he died, he left me a letter explaining everything that happened with your family. He also left me this. Trevor placed a flash drive on Damon's desk. What is this? Everything. Recordings of conversations between my father and your ex-wife planning how to manipulate your son against you. Documentation of the money he took from your father-in-law. And Trevor hesitated. Evidence that your son knew the allegations against you were false from the beginning. Not just later. Damon stared at the flash drive. Why give me this now? Because my father was a selfish, manipulative man who destroyed every relationship he ever had, including ours. Trevor's eyes were hard. I spent years hating him for abandoning my mother and me. Then I spent years trying to win his approval. By the time I understood who he really was, it was too late. That doesn't explain why you're here. I don't want his poison spreading anymore. Trevor stood. What you do with that information is your business. I just wanted you to know the full truth. After Trevor left, Damon plugged in the flash drive. For hours, he listened to conversations that confirmed his worst suspicions and revealed new depths to the betrayal. Adrian had been the initiator, approaching Walsh with clear intent. Liam had not been a reluctant participant, but an eager conspirator, recording conversations with Damon that could be edited to support their narrative. Most disturbing were the discussions of Damon's business, plans to use divorce proceedings to force him to sell his company, with Walsh positioned to broker deals with competitors using inside information. When Damon finally closed his laptop, night had fallen. He felt no satisfaction, no vindication, only a cold certainty that his instincts had been correct. The betrayal had been even more calculated than he'd suspected. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Did Trevor find you? Liam. Damon stared at the message. His son had made no attempt to contact him in 3 years. Now this cryptic question. Yes, he replied simply. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, we need to talk. It's important. Damon considered ignoring the message. What could possibly remain to be said between them? But curiosity, the same methodical need to gather all available information, won out. My office. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. The response came immediately. I'll be there. Chapter 8. Revelations. Liam arrived punctually, dressed in the uniform of a law clerk, pressed shirt, conservative tie, inexpensive but neat suit. He had grown into his features, looking more like Damon than Adrian now. You're working at a law firm, Damon observed, not offering to shake hands. Winters and Associates. I clerk during the day, take classes at night. Damon gestured to a chair. What was so important? Liam sat, his movements careful, contained. I see you viewed what was on the drive. You know about the contents? I'm the one who gave it to Trevor to bring to you. Liam met his father's gaze steadily. After Ben died, Trevor contacted me. He was going through his father's things and found all of it. He wanted to know if I knew about the recordings. Did you? No, not until Trevor showed me. Liam's hands tightened on the armrests. I knew we were lying about you being violent. I knew Mom was having an affair, but I didn't know they were recording everything, planning to take your company. That doesn't explain why you're here now. Liam took a deep breath. Mom's getting married again. To Gregory Miller. The name landed like a stone. Preston Whitmore's former attorney. The man who had been positioned to facilitate the meeting with Walsh 3 years ago. When? Next month. Small ceremony. Liam leaned forward. Dad, they've been together for over 2 years. Miller was feeding information to Mom and Ben even before you filed for divorce. He was part of it from the beginning. Damon's mind rapidly recalibrated. Gregory Miller had been Preston's attorney for decades. He had handled sensitive Whitmore family matters, including the foundation's legal work. If he had been involved from the start, Miller was the one who suggested recording you, Liam continued. He told them what kind of evidence would be most damaging in a divorce proceeding. And now he's marrying your mother. Damon's voice was cold. Convenient. There's more. Liam reached into his jacket and withdrew a folded paper. I found this in Miller's desk when I was dropping off some files for Mom. It's a power of attorney signed by Preston, giving Miller complete control over all remaining Whitmore assets. Dated 2 weeks ago. Damon examined the document. It appeared legitimate. Preston's familiar signature at the bottom, properly notarized. Preston is dying, Liam said quietly. Pancreatic cancer. Final stages. And you're bringing this to me because I think Miller orchestrated everything. He used Ben to get to Mom, used Mom to get to me, used all of us to try to get to you and your company. When that failed, he moved on to helping Preston manage what was left of the Whitmore fortune. Why would Miller target me specifically? Liam hesitated. Remember that security contract you won 7 years ago? The one for Southeastern Financial. Damon nodded slowly. It had been one of his firm's first major corporate clients, a regional bank that had since grown into a financial powerhouse. Miller was representing another security firm that bid on that contract. Your winning it cost his client millions, and cost Miller his position at the law firm where he was partner. The pieces aligned with dispassionate clarity. A calculated revenge plot not unlike Damon's own. Patient, far-reaching, using people as pawns. You still haven't explained why you're bringing this to me, Damon said. Liam met his gaze directly. Because I was wrong. About everything. I chose the wrong side, believed the wrong people. It took me 3 years and a lot of painful lessons to understand what you tried to teach me. That loyalty and truth matter. That actions have consequences. And now you want what? Forgiveness? A father-son reunion? No. Liam's voice was steady. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. What I want is to make sure Miller doesn't get away with using our family, what's left of it, as collateral damage in his vendetta against you. Damon studied his son, searching for deception and finding none. What exactly are you proposing? Miller doesn't know I found the power of attorney, or that Trevor contacted me. We have an opportunity to expose him before he marries Mom and gains control of Grandpa's estate. Damon's eyebrow raised. I'm not asking to be part of your life again, Liam said quietly. I'm asking you to help me protect what's left of my mother's future, and to make sure the man who helped destroy our family doesn't profit from it. Damon stood and walked to the window, looking out over the Atlanta skyline. The cold satisfaction he had felt upon winning his divorce had long since faded, leaving only an empty precision to his days. Here was an unexpected opportunity, not for reconciliation, but for a more complete justice than he had achieved. I'll need to verify everything you've told me, he said finally. Of course. Liam stood. Trevor is willing to testify about what his father left behind, and I've been making copies of anything relevant I find at Miller's office. That's potentially illegal. I learned from the best. A hint of the old Liam surfaced briefly. You taught me to be thorough. Damon turned. I'll have Calvin contact you tomorrow. Share everything you have with him. After that, we'll decide how to proceed. As Liam reached the door, Damon added, This doesn't change anything between us. I know. Liam's smile was sad but resigned. Some bridges stay burned. Chapter 9. The Final Reckoning. The courtroom was smaller than the one where Damon had first exposed Adrienne's lies years earlier. Judge Catherine Landry had been elevated to the federal bench, but her replacement, Judge Morris, had a similar reputation for intolerance of legal gamesmanship. Gregory Miller sat beside his attorney, outwardly composed but with a tightness around his mouth that betrayed his tension. Across the aisle, Preston Whitmore hunched in a wheelchair, his once robust frame wasted by disease and treatment. Damon sat beside Nelson Grant, his expression revealing nothing of the methodical preparation that had led to this moment. In the gallery behind them, Liam sat quietly, his presence unknown to his mother or Miller. The hearing had been convened on an emergency petition to invalidate the power of attorney Preston had granted to Miller, alleging undue influence and failure to disclose conflicts of interest. What might have been a routine civil matter had escalated when Damon's investigators uncovered evidence of financial irregularities in accounts Miller had already been managing for Preston. Your Honor, Nelson began. We have evidence that Mr. Miller has been systematically positioning himself to take control of the Whitmore family assets while concealing significant conflicts of interest from his client, Mr. Whitmore. Miller's attorney, Sharon Wells, objected immediately. This is a transparent attempt by Mr. Holloway to harass my client due to his personal animus over Mr. Miller's relationship with Mr. Holloway's ex-wife. Judge Morris frowned. I'm well aware of the history between these parties, Ms. Wells. Proceed, Mr. Grant. Nelson methodically presented the evidence. Miller's prior representation of competitors to Damon's business, his early involvement in the divorce strategy, financial transfers from accounts he managed for Preston to offshore entities later linked to Benjamin Walsh. Your Honor, Nelson continued. We have a witness who can speak directly to Mr. Miller's knowledge of and participation in a conspiracy to fraudulently obtain Mr. Holloway's business assets through divorce proceedings. Call your witness, Judge Morris directed. The defense calls Trevor Walsh. A murmur went through the courtroom as Trevor walked to the witness stand. Miller's face drained of color. Trevor testified about the materials his father had left behind. The recordings, the emails, the strategy sessions where Miller had directed both Walsh and Adrian on how to build a case against Damon. And why did your father preserve these materials? Nelson asked. Insurance, Trevor replied. He told me in his letter that he kept everything in case Miller ever tried to deny their arrangement. He didn't trust him. When Nelson played selected recordings, Miller's voice clearly audible discussing how to frame Damon. Adrian, sitting in the gallery, covered her face with her hands. Miller's defense crumbled as document after document established a pattern of deception and self-dealing. By the time Nelson called his final witness, Liam Holloway, Miller's attorney was already negotiating with the court clerk to arrange bail for her client on the likely criminal charges to follow. Liam's testimony was brief but devastating. He described finding the power of attorney, his suspicions about Miller's motives in pursuing a relationship with Adrian, and his subsequent discovery of documents suggesting Miller had been manipulating Preston's medical care to hasten his decline. When Judge Morris finally rendered his decision, it was comprehensive. The power of attorney was invalidated. All assets under Miller's control were to be frozen pending criminal investigation. A restraining order was issued preventing Miller from contacting any member of the Whitmore family, including Adrian. Outside the courthouse, Damon stood apart from the others, watching as Preston was helped into a medical transport van. Adrian, pale and shaken, spoke briefly with Liam before walking away alone. Well played, Calvin said, joining Damon. Miller's finished. The DA's already talking about multiple felony counts. Make sure Preston gets proper medical care, Damon replied. Use whatever resources necessary. Calvin looked surprised. I thought the Whitmores were still persona non grata. Preston was manipulated by Miller, same as the others. Damon's voice held no warmth, only precision. Justice means addressing the actual source of the problem. And Liam? He came through for you. Damon watched his son speaking with Trevor Walsh across the plaza. He did what was right. Finally, that evening, Damon returned to his empty house. A text message waited on his phone. Thank you, Liam. He didn't respond. Some debts could never be repaid. Some bridges remained burned by choice, not circumstance. Trust, once broken, could not be restored, only replaced with a colder, more pragmatic understanding. Damon Holloway had built his life on principles of loyalty, honesty, and consequence. The events of the past 3 years had not changed those principles, only reinforced their importance. Those who had betrayed him had paid their price. Even Miller, the architect of so much destruction, would face justice. As for forgiveness, that was a luxury Damon had never promised himself or others. In its place stood something more lasting. The absolute certainty that actions had consequences, and that he would always ensure those consequences were paid in full. Standing at his window, overlooking the city lights, Damon raised a glass to the empty room. The reckoning was complete. The ledger balanced. And if the victory tasted more bitter than sweet, well, that too was fitting. Some prices were worth paying.